Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and here with another new guest to the show, longtime listener and fellow podcaster, and that's Thompson. Damon, how you doing today?
I am amazing. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a little rainy out here, and I'm a little sleep deprived. It's 8 o'clock in the morning out here in Japan, but other than that, I'm doing good. I got my coffee, so I'm all right.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
So anyway,
is Lil one keeping you up?
No, actually, she's she's almost, I think she's about like 5 or 6 months now, and she's actually doing pretty well about sleeping mostly through the night. But even when she was a newborn, like she didn't really wake up all that much, like maybe like 2 or 3 times, and that was it. So she's a pretty good kid. We don't have too many problems with her.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The hard thing is getting her to actually go to sleep. That's the thing she doesn't want to do. Like last night, we're getting to like 11 o'clock at night, and she just did not want to sleep.
Like, y'all gonna do something when I go to sleep. I can't miss this.
Yeah. She always thinks we're up to shenanigans while she's asleep. Anyway, so why don't you take a few minutes and tell the listeners and the viewers on YouTube a little bit about yourself?
Name's Thompson. I am a podcaster. I'm a father of 2. I'm a husband of 1. I host Damon Does the 6 questions. Well, it's actually Damon Does, but Damon Does the 6 questions is the bulk of it, where it's an interview show where I ask all my guests the same 6 questions. And it's interesting how everyone's stories is unique, so there are all kinds of tangents that could happen, and I've had some really interesting conversations with creatives. I interviewed Derrick. Actually, I don't know if he ever knew this. I don't think I ever told him, but the day I interviewed him was my birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just happened to fall up. Like, it's like, yeah, I'll be up. It gave me a couple days. It gave me like a time frame. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give myself a birthday present. So I scheduled it. I never told him, but yeah, that was really cool. That was really cool.
That was So that's how we actually came to meet is through Derrick, because you had him on your show, and yeah, he told me about that, and I listened to the show, which was a great interview as well. And when I talked to him afterwards, he's like, yeah, I'm amazed he was able to cut it down so short, because we went on for like 3 hours. Which is always how it goes with Derrick. Like you go in thinking you're going to have like a 20-minute conversation, and the next thing you know, 3 hours have gone by.
And this is the best kind. It just, man, yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah,
but
so, yeah. How did you and Derrick come to meet in the first place?
Well, this is a really, really boring story, to be honest. I emailed him. He emailed. The short version is I emailed him, and he emailed me back. That was it. I just asked him, hey, I'm a fan of, I'm a fan, and this is my show. This is what I do, and I was surprised. I was surprised he answered, to be honest.
Oh, he's really good about answering stuff like that. He was always really good about that. So how did you end up becoming a fan of his? Like, was it the Dylan stuff? Was it something else that you read of his?
I'm trying to remember, because actually I've read a lot of your stuff too.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was a big fan. I want to say it's Myth Hunter.
Yeah.
That it. Myth Hunter was good. I liked in Infernum. I think I was one of the few people that liked it.
Yeah, I think you're one of the few people who actually read it. Actually.
So I can't remember how because you two are kind of intertwined in my mind. So I can't remember who I met first, but I remember it had to be Dylan. Because I think it was through New Pulp is what it was. So
okay, yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, a Black Pulp character? Yes, please.
Yeah.
So I read Dylan and the Eye of Odin, or
the Voice of Odin.
Voice of Odin, thank you. And
the Eye of Odin was the sequel he never got to.
Gotcha.
I had to do that.
And I read that, and I blew right through it, and then I just start. I think I've read everything he's put out except for maybe one. I'm in the middle of that now, so and then I found some interviews, and I think I was thinking about doing some writing at the time, and you were doing it was Exploding Typewriter, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I think that's how I found you. And
Oh,
then
really? Okay.
I believe so. I believe that's how it happened.
Oh, wow.
And
That's a blast from the past. Another thing that, that nobody paid much attention to.
well,
um,
I did.
but that's good. That's good. Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't really, I never realized that you had, I thought you only knew me basically through this show and through Derrick. So I had never known that you had, such knowledge of my stuff. So that's really cool.
Yeah, good. It was good. It's good stuff, man.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
I
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Actually, I'm hoping, because you've seen me on Facebook posting up artwork and stuff like that. My goal is to eventually do a Myth Hunter comic book.
Oh, that'd be dope.
So that's what I'm hoping to do, and because that was what the original idea was. It was to do it as a comic book. Actually, Derrick and I kind of came up with it together. Actually, like I came up with most of it, and then he like kind of workshopped it with me, and like like the whole thing with her using the ancient weapons and stuff, like that was Derrick's idea. That was something he contributed. And a lot of the stuff about like Asami's appearance and all that all came from Derrick too. Like he had these ideas about, he's like, you should do this, and then, and so, yeah, there's a lot of his DNA and most of my stuff actually.
That's absolutely not surprising at all.
Yeah. But anyway, so, we're looking because I was running a little bit behind, so I didn't get a chance to really check up on any news. But you mentioned you got something that you'd heard about, and that was the Milestone relaunch. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I am excited. I probably should have looked up an article while I was sitting there talking to you. As a matter of fact, I may do that while maybe not. Anyway, Milestone Media. Okay, most people would probably know Milestone through the Static Shock cartoon.
Right.
And Static was the Spider-Man-ish archetype of the, he was the teenager and all this. But it was actually a very in-depth, it was a much bigger company Milestone was. So the comics that are coming out, I believe they're coming out. We just discussed this. July 13th will be Static's Static 1, and I believe they're doing 6 issue arcs.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be Static will debut on July 13th. Then July 27th, it'll be Icon and Rocket, which was an interesting story because a lot of people would see it on its surface like, oh, it's Black Superman. Yeah, but it was Superman as a black man, but a Black Republican, which was an interesting juxtaposition between him and Rocket, who was his sidekick, and it was really her book. And they tackled some interest. They were really progressive for now. Then,
yeah.
Then,
and that was just wanted to name drop the founders here. It was Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cohen, Michael Davis, and Derrick T. Dingle. And and McDuffie, most people know him because he went on to work on the Justice League animated series and then the Justice League comic books as well after that.
Right. Yeah, he passed away. It's been a while now.
It's been, I want to say like 10 years or so, but I'm not sure exactly. Something like that. Yeah, it's been I know it's been some time.
Wow.
Yeah, I got just looked it up. Yeah, almost 10 years ago exactly. February 21st, 2011 is when he passed away.
Wow. Dang, it just flies by.
Yeah. I came to his stuff after he passed because everyone was talking him up, and I had read like his Justice League run, which apparently had like a lot of like editorial interference when he was doing the comics, and like there were characters he wanted to use that he couldn't use and all, and because of like stuff going on in the different character books. So like he had a lot of stuff like kind of forced, but it doesn't show in the writing. Like he was one of those people who was really able to work with what he was given.
Man, I want to say he was the writer on Icon at the beginning of its run. I don't have all that information in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's the one he wrote. Then the last one is Hardware, which would be the Iron Man archetype,
right?
And I don't know what they'll do with. It's not that big of a spoiler. Well, it's a spoiler for a 20-year-old book or whatever. Hardware was oh gosh, I can't think of his secret
Alter
identity.
ego.
Yes.
Curtis
Uh,
Metcalf.
thank you. He was, you know, he was a gifted prodigy, science genius. There's this his uh benefactor is named Alva, and he, you know, was his mentor. He raised him up and had, you know, he's like basically second in charge in the company.
Mhm.
And then he finds out that he is not as important as he thinks he is,
Oh, okay.
and decides to use the resources at his disposal to wreak havoc. And
Hmm.
it was just a really interesting twist on, you know, because Tony Stark's on top of everything, and everybody's trying to knock him down, and he's, I don't know, it's a really cool book. I don't know if they're gonna go with that, obviously, because they're updating Static's origin, because he was in there was a gang fight
Hmm.
which is where the Big Bang,
Hmm.
where everybody got their powers. I think he'll be at a Black Lives Matter protest.
Oh, okay.
So, so I think they're
That
gonna
that
have
was you answered a question I was going to ask, if they were going to go like if it was going to be like a relaunch type thing, or if it was going to be a full on reboot like Valiant did a few years back. So it sounds like they're doing the full on reboot.
yeah, that's what it's looking like. I haven't heard anything else from like anything different.
Mhm.
That'll be different from the other comics. That's the only one I know of
Yeah.
right now. But
And you
yeah,
were talking about the writer of Icon. It looks like it was McDuffie. In fact, at least according to Wikipedia, it looks like he wrote most of these, at least the
oh wow,
original ones that came out. Like, so it's Hardware, Blood Syndicate, Icon, Static. He seemed to have written most of those, and I think other writers came in after, but he seemed to have been like one of the main creators in all of them, at least.
okay.
But he was listed as the only writer on Icon, so I'm pretty sure like he just wrote that all himself. But I could be wrong about that, because like we were talking before we started recording, I came into comics like after Milestone had kind of faded away, so um, I had missed that whole boat, and because yeah, I even worked when I first got into comics. I was working in a comic book store, and I don't remember any Milestone books at all there with the new releases. So I think they had faded by that point. That was like the late '90s, early 2000s. So and then but I've always been curious, because especially after Dwayne McDuffie died, everyone was talking about the Milestone books. Like Sean Ali loves those, and he mentioned them a lot. And I was always curious to check them out. Like I'd never watched Static or anything like that, but I'm always curious. And I remember Icon and Rocket were on Young Justice. Icon was part of the Justice League, and Rocket became a member of the Young Justice team. And so probably just similar, like you said with the book, Icon was just kind of like there. He wasn't really a big presence, and it was mostly Rocket we touched on in the TV show. And she was a cool character, and I thought that was neat to bring her in that way. So I'm wondering how they're gonna do the Milestone stuff, because I know obviously when they did Young Justice, they were part of the Justice League, and they were part of the DCU. And I think when they did New 52, Static was also part of the DC universe at that point too. So do you know if they're bringing them back in the DC universe, or if they're going to have them in their own universe again?
From what I have read, or I haven't read anything from officials, so these are from YouTube
Mhm.
channels. So take that for a grain of salt. I came Magnegro, I think is his name is Blurred Without Fear, maybe. It's one of those two. And they said that it's going to be its own thing. So
Okay.
it'll be disconnected from. There won't be any crossover. There are no plans for any crossovers or anything like that
Okay.
so far. So
I mean, that's good. I think it would probably work better in its own universe anyway, because then you're going to have like those types of characters. I think they work much better in their own universe anyway, because it's not as impressive to have like a character of Icon in a world where you've got like Superman and all these other metahumans as well. Because I think that was one of the things about it, was like it was this new thing within that world as well.
right. And how everything is tied into it, where there's politics involved and like the whole deal. It's yeah.
Yeah, and since I missed those Milestone books, and they don't have any collections in print. I'm hoping that now that they're doing this reboot, they'll also go back and collect those older issues too.
Assuming that the relaunch does well, I would assume so.
Well, yeah. All right. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that. So yeah. Thanks for bringing that. But anyway, today's movie that we that you chose you wanted to talk about today is the original Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. Derrick and I talked about Volume 2 way back when. And it was funny when you told me that you wanted to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy. I had actually just watched it like a few days before with my wife. Like just randomly, she was like, "I want to watch Guardians of the Galaxy."
Nice.
So the timing couldn't have been better on that.
You're welcome.
All right. So were you familiar with the Guardians before the movie, or did you just come into these characters through the movie?
I was familiar with a different version of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
So the original one, yeah.
Vance Astro and Starhawk and Yondu was oh boy, wow. Yeah,
very different from
very different. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah. So that's the team I was familiar with. So when I saw the I saw the title, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let's see how they do that. And then I saw when I saw Rocket before I'd seen the movie, I was like, okay, Marvel's jumped the shark. It's fine, whatever. And we'll just long story short, I was not familiar with any of the I had known of Dax Destroyer and Gamora because of, I want to say they had a bigger part in the Infinity Gauntlet series.
Yeah,
like the original.
Yeah, so they were those they were part of Jim Starlin's whole cosmic universe type thing that he had set up. So it was like Drax, Gamora, Thanos, and all of that was tied in together when Starlin was doing like the Captain Marvel and then later the Infinity stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. So I was familiar with them, but I wasn't familiar with Star-Lord or Rocket Raccoon or Groot or anything like that. So
I had read because this Guardians is based on, like, I'd known of the original ones, but I'd never really read any of the stuff they'd been in. Not until later when they had published. I remember they published a Guardians 3000 series after the movie came out, where they went back to the original team too. But this team, the movie, it was based on Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. They did this whole cosmic event called Annihilation back in the early 2000s, and they kind of, at the end of that, they'd rebooted a lot of Marvel's cosmic characters. Not rebooted, but like gave new attention to them, like Silver Surfer, Super Skrull, and Nova, and all these. And spinning out of that event was Guardians of the Galaxy. So they had completely given Drax, because Drax used to be like a Superman type. He was like incredibly powerful, if you remember. But he wasn't very intelligent. He had like very low intelligence. And then during the Annihilation, they flipped that on its head, where they gave him more intelligence, but they reduced his powers so that now he's just basically got the superhuman strength. And so that they came out with this Guardians of the Galaxy series, and it had all those 5 plus like a bunch of other characters. Like it had the Phyla-Vell, Captain Marvel's daughter. They had Mantis was part of the original team as well. I think Adam Warlock was there as well for a bit too, and a bunch of other characters came in and out. So I had read that, and when I saw that because this came out, they announced this after Avengers, and I didn't think that Marvel jumped the shark, because I love the idea of Rocket Raccoon, and like that was one of the reasons I even looked into the original Guardians of the Galaxy comic book in the first place, was because of Rocket. So when I heard they were going to do this, I thought, okay, that sounds cool, but I don't know why they're doing that. Because it just seemed like came completely out of left field. It's like we hit it big with Avengers, and now we're going to do this little known property that nobody but like hardcore Marvel fans know about.
Right. So my wife does childcare, and one of the kids she was hanging out with, they went and saw Guardians of the Galaxy. I had no intention on seeing it. And she comes home, and she sits me down, and she says, it's like, you got to go see Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, absolutely not. She looks me in the face, and she never said this before or since. She said, Damon, go see it, because if you don't like it, I will be disappointed. Meaning she liked it that much.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, you put it all on the line. So I went and saw it, and honestly, I think I saw every Marvel. I hadn't seen any of the Marvel movies at the theater at that point yet, except for maybe Avengers, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And after Guardians of the Galaxy, we were at every single one at the theater after that, to Endgame. So
Yes,
so that
I was looking. Sorry, go ahead.
so it just turned the corner. It was, instead of jumping the shark, it turned the corner. It just I was in.
So for me, I had I was really looking forward to it, especially when the trailers came out, and especially when I heard that when they announced that Bradley Cooper was going to be voicing Rocket. I thought that was a really cool choice, because that was during a time when he was like really kind of blowing up. Like he was just coming off like The Hangover and A-Team, and I think Limitless as well came out around that time too. So like all this stuff that he was in was coming out at that time. And that was when he was like the big A-list actor. So I was really surprised that they got him. And also Vin Diesel to just come in and record 3 lines basically over and over again. That was also, I thought, was a really interesting choice that they did. And that seems like a total James Gunn thing to do, is just get like a big name actor to just come in and just record random lines and not have his face shown, which he's doing again with Stallone in Suicide Squad now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and because he's doing King Shark, and it looks like he's not going to have like a whole lot of speaking lines. So, and so I was really looking forward to it, and I actually didn't know anything about Chris Pratt before this movie, and I went to see it with a friend of mine. I was back in Chicago visiting some family, and one of my old friends, she's like, "Oh, let's go out to a movie tonight." And I said, "Okay, well, I really want to see Guardians of the Galaxy." And she's like, "Really? Do we have to see that?" I'm like, "Trust me, come with. If you don't like it, I'll give you your money back, okay?" And she's like, "All right, fine." So we go see it, and afterwards, she's like, "That was so good. I want to go see it again." So much so that when Volume 2 came out, it was actually also when I was coming back to the States. And like, as soon as like a week before I was coming back to the States, she sends me a message, and she's like, "So you're coming back on this date? Guardians of the Galaxy comes out on this date. We're going to see it." I'm like,
that's awesome.
And also my wife, when we first started dating, she was like, she's like, "Oh, I don't like superhero movies." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm not sure how this relationship is going to go at that point." But then she's over one night, and I said, I'm like, "Well, let's watch a movie." And she's like, "Okay." And so I'm like, and I put on Guardians of the Galaxy, and so we start watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and she's like, "Oh, that was really good. I really like that." And then she's like, "There's another one." I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Okay, let's see the next one." And so then after that was her gateway drug. I got her into the MCU after that, and so now she loves all of them too.
Nice. One of the things that I loved about this movie was the way it uses music.
Yes.
Because I genuinely, honestly do not notice those types of things unless something's like really off. It's just
I'm the same way. Yeah.
But like, it was one of those things where it felt like they wrote some of these scenes to this music. You know what I mean? It all fits so well together. It was, I couldn't sing this praise enough, man.
Yeah.
But that was one of the biggest things for us.
The choice of music was just amazing, because I remember the soundtrack came out a few months before the movie, and man, that was just such an awesome selection of songs. And when it said Volume 1 on it, I kept hoping, I'm like, are they going to have like a Volume 2 album of like, because I wanted to see more of it. And it's just like James Gunn's own personal playlist. Like and it's just such a cool concept that really works for Peter's character to have, like, he's got this tape that was with him when he got abducted. So it makes sense that he would have all this older music as well.
Right. It just fits right. It all fit right in. Yeah. There was something I was going to ask. I can't remember what it was. Never mind.
Well, about the music, like, I think especially in Volume 2, I thought the music, I think the music selection in Volume 1 was better, but I thought in Volume 2, the music, like you were saying, when they wrote some of the scenes specifically around those songs, I think there's a lot more of that in Volume 2 as well. Like like the whole thing with like Fleetwood Mac's The Chain, the whole thing with Brandy and all that. Like, I think James Gunn had kind of that idea when he was doing it, but not all of them fit together as well in the first one as much as in the second one. Like, when he's doing like Hooked on a Feeling when he's being tortured in the prison cell. It's such an incongruous thing, but it works so well. Or also the Margarita song, and like, he's flying over the prison as if you like pina coladas playing in the background.
Oh man, I can't remember what I was gonna say.
Yeah, but this movie actually made me want to go back and look up Parks and Rec, because the friend I had seen it with, she was a huge Parks and Rec fan, and after this, she's like, "Have you seen Parks and Rec? You have to watch Parks and Rec." And so I, stuck through the terrible first season just because of Chris Pratt. I'm like, because everyone's like, "Oh, it gets better," and then after that, it did get much better. So I'm glad. But if it wasn't for this movie, I may not have stuck through it.
I did the exact same thing, actually. It's funny that you say that. I literally did the exact same thing because I'd seen the movie. We had some missionaries over, and we were talking about movies and comedy and stuff, and they mentioned, it's like, "Have you seen because I have a wry sense of humor?" And it was like, "Have you seen Parks and Rec?" I'm like, "No." And it's like, "Give it 3 episodes." Just give it 3 episodes. And I did. I'm like, okay. Like, it was like I was in, and I was like, "Oh, that's where he's from."
Yeah.
Because he was a little more doughy. He was more normal back then as far as his physique goes.
Yeah. I remember him talking about, I remember there was a big thing on social media about the fact that how ripped he was in the Guardians trailer and compared to how he was in the TV show. And I remember him doing an interview or something, and he was asked about the workout regime, and they're asking like, "Well, what did it entail?" And one of the things he said was like a lot of crying.
That poor guy.
Yeah.
But they yeah, to be that lean, you gotta.
Yeah. But and it's funny when you think about this movie, because the characters in this movie are very, with the exception of Rocket, probably. I think Rocket and Groot are probably the closest to their comic book equivalents. But the characters, though, they're almost like original characters compared to how they are in the comics. I mean,
interesting. I didn't.
Yeah, because which I think it works better. Like Drax is he's not as what's the right word I want to look for? He's not stupid, but he's not aware in the movie, right? That's kind of like he lacks this awareness of kind of what's going on, and like he's not like that in the comic books. He's much more calculating, and he's still got that like hard exterior, but it's much more like a kind of like calculating intelligence. Gamora too, right? She's much more of like the standard stock warrior princess type character, and Star-Lord is also, he was just standard space opera superhero. It wasn't anything. Their personalities didn't really stand out that much in the comic books, and so I understand why they made the changes they did, because it makes these characters come alive so much more in the movie. And now they've done that in the comic books too. They've kind of changed their personalities, much like they did with they did kind of a similar thing with Tony Stark, I think, right? Because in the comic books, he's not as eccentric as Robert Downey Jr. is in the movies. And then after the movies became so big, they started to adopt those things into the comics.
Right. Do you know of any other changes that I don't want to say changes, but influences like that? Because I was aware of the Guardians. That was happened to be the one of the bigger ones, which made me think maybe that's why they're not as popular as they're not as popular characters, so you can kind of mess with it a little bit.
I think so, yeah.
Because I remember when X-Men came out, everybody and their mother was like,
got some guests popping up in the background there.
What do you need, Cheerins? You want to say hi to Mr.
Hey.
Go ahead and say hi.
Hey. Oh, you got Thor there. Nice.
Close the door, Sweet Pea. Love you.
Adorable.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
They're the best, man.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
the best.
Yeah, we used to have my daughter popped up a few times on here because there are a lot of times when I was doing the show in the morning and with Derrick, and she was and I was watching her, so I'd like be holding her on screen while we're doing the podcast.
I loved her reaction to Zack Snyder. I found that was my favorite. I was just like, yes, she's gonna be okay. She's gonna be okay.
That happened on we were guests on the Pop DNA podcast too, and we had somehow we got on Zack Snyder, and I was watching her too during that time. And same thing, like as soon as Zack Snyder comes up, she starts crying. And Derrick's, oh, there we go again.
Buddy. No, you can't. I'll see you in a bit, okay? And it's plastic.
Derrick's reaction to that was the best when she started crying. He's like, oh, sweetie, I'm sorry. Uncle Derrick won't talk about Zack Snyder anymore. It's okay.
Loved it. Oh,
yeah.
My God, loved
it. But as for other change, yeah, but I think you're right. I think it was because these characters weren't as well known that they felt they had more freedom to kind of mess with it because and that's paid off for Marvel in different ways. They found good ways to work around that. Like some of these characters, they are able to mess around with them. Like with Iron Man, he wasn't, he's not like Spider-Man level popularity. So you can mess with his personality a little bit, and like because not as many people are reading the Iron Man comics anyway.
Right. That was them taking a big huge chance on a B or C list character anyway.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and that's why it's really it shows like how it's a testament to Marvel's the strength of the talent they get involved in these, because I remember when they were talking about because I remember just like you, a lot of people had that reaction. It's like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel's jumped the shark, and then like you couldn't swing a dead cat on the internet without hitting at least 10 articles talking about how Guardians of the Galaxy means that Marvel is going to fail, or it's going to be Marvel's first big failure. And then the same thing with Ant-Man too. Like it was the same thing. Like all these articles predicting Marvel's first big flop, and also Captain Marvel, and now with Eternals too, and Shang-Chi. Like you're seeing a lot of those same types of things popping up, and each time, Marvel's been proving them wrong. So
there'll be one eventually, but not in the foreseeable future, man.
I mean, I think that the closest thing I could think of is the Inhumans TV series, and that wasn't even Marvel Studios. That was the television division. But yeah, that was probably the one thing that was like universally reviled.
The one thing I'm really curious about, Danger Time, is how they're going to handle the X-Men in the MCU, because that was the wing of Marvel that I was really into, because it spoke to me, you know what I mean? And they didn't interact too much with the rest of the universe. It was like its own main thing for the most part. So I wonder, like, any ideas, or what do you think about how they're going to integrate all that?
So I had a theory about this, and I had mentioned this way back when we talked about the first X-Men movie. But so my theory is that because and we kind of saw, I think I'm feeling even more invested in this theory after some of the other stuff that's come out since then. But like because Wanda and Pietro, they got their powers from the Mind Stone, right? Because of Strucker's experiments with it. So so my theory is that the Mind Stone didn't give them powers, but it kind of jump-started their evolution. So like mutants have existed in history, but it's just like such a very, very, very small portion of the population. Like you're talking like 1 in a million type thing. And so I think you can do that, and that explains how you have characters like Apocalypse, or Wolverine and Sabretooth, or even Professor X and Magneto, who have been around all this time, but nobody knows about them. And so what I think is, because in Endgame, Rocket said that when Thanos snapped his fingers, Earth became ground zero for a surge of energy that has never been seen before. And so there were a total of 3 snaps on Earth, right? So you had Thanos, and then you had Hulk when he brought everybody back, and then Tony when he got rid of Thanos' army. So all 3 of those snaps, right? The Earth is just like flooded with all this cosmic energy and from the Infinity Stone. So, and we kind of saw hints of this in WandaVision when she comes in contact with the Mind Stone, and that's when she gets her powers. So my theory is that the energy that's been floating around the planet now has kind of jump-started human evolution. So whereas before mutants were like 1 in 1 million, now you're talking like 1 in 100 or something like that. And so my theory has been that you have, at least this is how I would do it, right? Because and now in Jonathan Hickman's X-Men stuff he's doing in the comics, he had Xavier and Magneto use Krakoa as like a mutant nation. And because Krakoa is a sentient island, it can move to different parts of the planet. So it can keep moving around. It's not stationary in one spot. And so so my theory is, at least how I would do it is I would say that the mutants have been around for a while, but only in very small numbers. Xavier and Magneto have been gathering them together on Krakoa, whatever ones he can find, maybe with help from Nick Fury too. Like, he's just kind of like, look, I'll help you out. You keep your people under control type of thing. And then after the Infinity Stones, right? After the blip and all that, you had all these mutants who get, just completely wiped out and then come back. And so, and all these new mutants coming up, and now they're facing prejudice, right? Now that and especially you tie it into Thanos, because everybody's suspicious of these people who get their powers because of the Infinity Stones,
right?
Which would really help to build up the prejudice angle. And so you combine all that together, and then you could have, that's a really easy way to see the divide between Xavier and Magneto. And so you can have like the X-Men already established, and now they're coming out into the public view. At least that's how I would do it. I think that's a way that's organic with what's been set up so far, as opposed to just, oh, everybody comes in from another universe, like some people have been saying.
Okay, so Kevin Feige, if you're listening, you happen to be listening, Mr. Why do I keep Mr. Constantine needs a job.
Yes, please.
Give it to him. You heard the man. You heard.
And I work for cheap. I work for cheap. I'm not going to work for James Gunn money, so don't worry about that.
I'll sell yourself short. I'm your agent. I get my 10%. Hold on. No, that's brilliant. I love it. I hope it's somewhere close. I'll be kind of disappointed if it's anything.
Yeah, like I've been thinking about this way too much. Like, because like you, I'm such a huge X-Men fan, so I've been batting this over my head on like for the past few years since Marvel announced that they bought out the Fox stuff. So, but anyway, back to Guardians of the Galaxy. I think because when we had the MCU movies up to this point, like they had some humor in there, especially Avengers really kind of jump started the humor in it. But Guardians of the Galaxy took it to like another level with the humor. But they do it in such a way that. So it's really funny, but it's still, the humor is so rooted in these characterizations, and just like that one scene I'm thinking, like even that one scene that really stood out to me was the scene on Nowhere when Drax and Rocket get into the fight, and it's such a funny scene, but it's also, it tells you so much about these two different characters too.
And they do it they did it in like, I mean, they did it throughout the scene, but they do it in like 4 lines. He's like, he has no respect. That is true. Yeah. He also doesn't know what he's talking about. That is also true. Like just those 4 lines like say so much about those two. It was yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, and also just like Rocket's inferiority complex kind of is the best way to put it. Like because he's saying, he's like, he thinks I'm some stupid thing. He does. And you can tell he's kind of slurring his speech. You can tell he's kind of drunk, and you realize, and just like, like you said, in just these short little lines, it tells you so much about that character.
Right. And it makes him finally, you like him at first because he kind of does what he wants. He's competent and all that. But right then you feel for him. You're like, wow, okay, I can't, because you don't think about it because he's human like, and then he says that and it just sits. It's like, wait a minute, like what would that feel like? It just make you feel for him, and it's one of the first times you really do that for him. But yeah.
And similarly with Drax, like his whole you feel for him a lot too, like but he's also got this, like Dave Bautista, like I had never expected him to be such a standout actor in this movie, because usually when you get wrestlers as actors, it's a mixed bag, right? Every now and then you get a Dwayne Johnson, but most of the time you get a Hulk Hogan. So
correct.
But to see him in this, like he's, it seemed like how good of an actor he is, and just like the way he works in this humor, and the fact that he's not in on the joke the whole time is just so great. Like the whole thing about, he doesn't understand metaphors, and he's like, and they'll go right over his head. He's like, nothing goes over my head. I'll catch it.
Yeah, I like how he takes nothing literally, just makes it so much easier for those types of things.
And also the scene at the end too, when they're talking about, if you commit any further crimes, you'll be in trouble again. And Drax is like, what if somebody does something irksome and I rip his spine out? And they're like, that's murder. That's like the worst crime you could do.
And his response is like, oh, okay. And just wants on, okay, cool.
Also, Rocket tried to have this polite conversation about stealing stuff. He's like, but you don't understand, sir. I want it more.
I wanted more, sir. Like, and he was earnest.
Yeah.
I wanted more, sir. I loved it. That was so it's nice to know that I wasn't the only person who had a crush on Alyssa Milano.
Oh yeah. I didn't catch that the first time. Like I did not catch that reference the first time. And then like and then it was the second time, like, oh, I get it now.
Right. My wife and I were just talking about this. I was watching it again for today, and it was weird to see Glenn Close.
Yeah, yeah. This is and it's so cool because this is also I can't remember. I think this came out before Winter Soldier, but it's kind of cool. Like they had like all these. Marvel's got this talent for getting this ability to bring in these like, really, high caliber actors, but in these relatively small roles. Like, it really kind of started with Anthony Hopkins, right? You had him in Thor playing Odin. Right. And then, in Captain America, you get Tommy Lee Jones come in and then also in Thor, you had Stellan Skarsgård. And then in I don't think there's anyone really in Avengers, but then what's his name? Powers Booth was in. He was part of the council.
Yes, yeah.
And then you bring in Glenn Close in Guardians of the Galaxy and Robert Redford in The Winter Soldier, and just like it's really cool how they're able to get these actors to come in and just do these like small little parts.
And you couldn't. If you had told me that when the Michael Keaton Batman came out, that somebody like Glenn Close or somebody like that or Robert Redford in a superhero movie, you know what I mean? It's like, really? Nah. And a small bit, they won't even be the star.
Well, Derrick, like I've been re-listening to a lot of the old episodes because I mentioned I'm trying to compile like notes for stuff for like a Derrick-centric episode. And one of the things he mentioned, we were talking about First Avenger was you get actors like Tommy Lee Jones or Robert Redford, and they bring a gravitas to these movies, and it elevates the whole thing. That just their presence alone elevates it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's really true, and to her, she's got such a funny part of this too. Like, she's such a great actress, but like when she's talking to like the Kree ambassador or whatever, and then when she shuts off when the feed cuts and she's like, prick.
Yeah, man. there was something I remember we were talking about music earlier, and I remember what it was now.
Mhm.
The soundtrack was #1 on the Billboard, and it was the first soundtrack to do it without any original music.
Oh, wow.
I knew there was something else I was trying to remember about the music. That was it.
Yeah, and just like that music right from the first scene, right? That first scene it's a textbook example on how to set the tone of a movie.
Mhm.
Right? Because you drop him on Morag, it's got this ominous background music, you got this, this this sci-fi hero with his spaceship and his space gear, and he's walking through, he's exploring everything. He takes off his mask and he puts on the headphone and he starts dancing to Redbone. It's just so perfect.
And then I love the callback in Endgame when
I was about to mention that too. Yeah.
They showed the whole scene
Mhm.
and how terrible he was dancing. That made I watched it again. I laughed harder this time, but knowing
Yeah.
that everything that they actually put in Guardians of the Galaxy is all the good stuff. The rest of it's awesome.
But it's such a great scene because then you have that scene where Rhodey's looking at Nebula and he's just like, so he's an idiot, huh? And Nebula's just kind of like, yeah.
Another thing I love about Star-Lord is he is childish. He's he's and all that, but he's really clever and he's really quick on his feet. That everybody calls him dumb and all that, and he doesn't think too far ahead. But when it comes down to like putting an intricate plan together with on the fly, he's a very quick thinker. Like
he's an improviser. Yeah,
that's it. That's what that's exactly. This is why that's for the writer. But yeah, the way he just like, let's do this and we'll do that, fly by the seat of their pants. And like from the dance off, it's like, well, if I can distract him just long enough, what can I do? And it was just those little things about. I don't know if Star-Lord in the comics was like that. But
oh no, not at all. Yeah, I think they and it's funny. We were recently my wife had never seen the original Star Wars trilogy, so we had just watched that this past weekend. And watching again, you can see so much of like Han Solo's DNA in Star-Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that's it's like a mix of it's like a mix of Han Solo and Malcolm Reynolds from Firefly.
Yes.
Which Nathan Fillion, he had a cameo in this movie too. You wouldn't know it, you wouldn't recognize him because he didn't actually appear. It was just him doing a voiceover. But you remember when they were in the prison and there's that big purple alien-looking guy who comes up to Star-Lord and he's like, "I'm gonna slather you in jelly and go to town on you." That's Nathan Fillion.
Really?
Yeah. And he also had a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 because, but again, it's a very small thing. He was Simon Williams' Wonder Man because at one of the Earth scenes, they've got movie posters of Simon Williams movies, and that's Nathan Fillion playing Simon Williams.
I do remember that now. Yeah, I remember that as soon as you said it. Yeah. Again, another high-priced actor doing a small part.
Yeah, and he's also going to be in the Suicide Squad as Armfall Lothboy.
Of course he is.
Of course, yeah.
Of course he is.
Yeah. I also want to talk about now because you mentioned Yondu before, and I want to talk about him because even though I know he's nothing like the comics, like I just love this incarnation of Yondu. He's just so fun.
Bully. Bully. And then he was definitely the antagonist, but it was at least complex.
Yes,
yeah.
More so than Ronan. Like Ronan is very kind of one-dimensional, and
right.
Like this was during that time when Marvel wasn't putting a whole lot of effort into a lot of their villains outside of Loki.
Mm-hmm.
But Yondu was just so, he had that whole the whole swagger in it, and it's all down to, oh god, what's the name of the actor who plays him? I'm completely blanking on his name.
Oh, Michael. I want to say Booker or something like that.
Michael Rooker. That was it.
Rooker. That's it.
Yeah, and like just but also how they go from this into him and his role in the second movie too. And again, it's a testament to James Gunn's writing ability, like how complex he's able to make this character in just like the short amount of these scenes.
Mm-hmm. And he stole every scene he was in.
He did, yeah.
He stole every scene he was in.
And I just love how he keeps reminding Pete, he's like, you remember when I brought you in, everybody wanted to eat you. And I said no. It's like he keeps bringing that up.
One thing I loved how they teased the arrow. And they set it up. I think they did it 4 times before he actually wipes out all the bad guys at the end of the movie. And it was all, and the way, that sense of danger, because everybody always flipped out.
Yes.
Like, so, it was kind of like that, it was kind of like Vader. Like we didn't see Vader fight very often, or we didn't see him fight till the very end. We didn't even see much, but you were scared of Vader. Like you were scared for the heroes when Vader showed up, even though he didn't do much. And it was the same thing with that arrow, because he'd start whistling. Everybody's like, oh crap. and then it's the same guy who has a console full of figurines that he sticks up there that for whatever reason that he likes.
It's another one of those little character traits, right? Like the first time that comes up is when he's talking to the broker, and the broker's like, I can't tell if you're being serious, and Sean Gunn's character's like, no, he's being serious. Then later you see his console, and he really does have them all lined up there.
Mm-hmm. And he finds out that's when he finds out as well. We find out about his collection being real, and then he finds out he just got hornswoggled, and he's got a troll in the little orb thing.
But also that was I love that he trolled him with a troll. And then he's got that, but the little smile he gets on his face, right? It gives you just a hint of the, like, even a regular bad guy would have been like, all right, got to find Star-Lord now and kill him. But the little, he's like, the little fucker got me.
Mm-hmm. He's like, you're just like, okay, all right.
And also Groot, like I was surprised at how emotional, like every time I've seen this movie, like a dozen times or so, maybe more, but like that We Are Groot scene, it kills me every time.
Yes, boy, yeah, I've had to pretend like I was tough, and like I had some in my eye to leave the room a couple of times. It's amazing how they go from all trying to kill each other to We Are Groot, and we're all sobbing, like, just and it's just wrenching at the heart, pull at the heartstrings,
and it's completely believable too. Like it never feels forced. Yeah, and it's just such a the great assemblage of talent they got in here, and we didn't really talk that much about her, but Zoe Saldana as well. Like just I mean, there's not a whole lot to say because she's just awesome in everything.
Right. Yeah, this is true. But to her not one, I think they originally wanted her to like have her CGI'd or something.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And that may not be true. I can't remember exactly what that was, but she wanted to do the makeup and the full deal. I think they were going to do something similar to what they did X-Men again. What is her name? Mystique.
Oh, yeah.
Was that actual painted or was that CGI? I couldn't remember.
Originally it was paint when it was Rebecca Romijn. And then with Jennifer Lawrence, I'm not sure. I think they did a mix of different things, and also they kept her because she was apparently allergic to the paint. I think it was just more that she didn't want to be in it. So, but and by that point she was coming off the Hunger Games stuff, so they let her do whatever she wanted anyway. So, which is why she appears more as Jennifer Lawrence than as Mystique in most of the movies after First Class.
That makes a lot of sense.
But I think towards the end, I think they were using a mix of CGI stuff in there.
Gotcha. Yeah, there was she wanted to portray it through makeup more than computer graphics and stuff like that. Like but yeah, she's everything I've seen her in, like I've when I sat and thought about it, I was like, wow, she does a lot of action movies.
She does, yeah. She's like especially at that time, she was like the go-to action star. Like she was in that, she was in The Losers, she was in the Avatar movie, Avatar, and there was another one, Colombiana, I think it was called, and yeah, she's like she seemed to be having that career that what's her name? I can't even think of. There's someone I had in mind. I just completely blanked on it. But she's like become like this, like she had become like this action star by that point. So when she got cast as Nebula, I mean as Gamora, it's like, oh yeah, of course.
Right. Yeah, she's where who is the Cara Dune.
Oh yeah. Gina Carano.
Thank you. Yeah, Gina Carano wants to be Zoe Saldana.
Yeah, well, she kind of shot herself in the foot with that.
Yeah, you got to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Especially after you're warned, right? That was the thing. Like Derrick and I were talking about that. Like, they pulled her aside and they said, look, you got to cut the shit. And then she doubles down on it instead. It's like, well, we warned you. What are you going to do?
And that would happen at any other job.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean? If she got that much notice, because
any other job, she would have been fired on the spot.
Right. So I mean, and I don't feel bad for her.
No,
so
not at all.
Hopefully lessons are learned and everybody grows. So.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. There's not much more to say about it. You know what? There is one more thing I wanted to mention. That's the collector, Benicio del Toro. Mm-hmm. Such a great choice, and just like how eccentric he is, and just like when he sees Groot, and he's like, you must let me pay you now so that I can have your body when you die.
That's weird. Is that that's not a character I know anything about. Is that something that they created, or is that something from the is that somebody?
He's from the comics. The collector's. He's one of the elders of the universe, along with like the Grandmaster and a bunch of other types. Like Order and Chaos, and but I don't think he's as eccentric as he is in this movie, though. Again, and a lot of that down to Benicio del Toro, I think, too. But also, if you notice in that scene, there's this dog in like a cosmonaut outfit. Mm-hmm. That's a character from the comics. Cosmo is his name, and he's like kind of like the Guardians. Kind of like their mission control, like he kind of like runs the missions for them and stuff like that. And what? He's this Russian dog who was sent into space and got lost out there and gained intelligence as a result. So he like communicates telepathically and all that. And him and Rocket have this rivalry, and that's that little hint at when him and Rocket kind of growl at each other.
Oh, that's awesome! I did not know that.
Yeah, and there's something else I want to mention. Oh, the whole scene where they show the Celestials, right? When he's showing the history of the Infinity Stones, and I remember everybody was freaking out over that because before that everybody was like, well, they can never do Galactus because Galactus would be too unbelievable, and then they put a freaking Celestial right up there, and it's like, okay, they can do Galactus now.
And I can't wait.
I'm
here for it. Can't wait.
And full Kirby style too, right? It was the full Kirby on design. Like they didn't change anything about that design.
Right. Yeah, that's well, we are at a golden age for comic book movies, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's been really cool to be a nerd all these years and finally have something like this pay off.
Absolutely, yeah, and also at the end the end credit scene when you get Howard the Duck pop up, voiced by Seth Green, whose voice sounds completely different.
Yeah, no kidding. I didn't know that was him until I saw I think I looked it up online afterwards.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
But that was great. And then they had him pop up in volume 2 as well. And I hope they bring him back, and I hope they do something with Howard eventually. I know they were talking about doing an animated series at one point, but I think that was one of the ones that because I think MODOK was the only one that survived out of that. And so I'm not sure what they're going to, I hope they do something with him though.
Yeah. I've liked it so far. And actually I remember watching the movie, but I don't remember if it was really good or not. But I do remember watching the movie when I was a kid. I probably shouldn't have, now that I think about it.
I actually haven't seen it. I know Derrick liked it. I remember him saying like he's like the only problem with that movie is the duck costume. But other people I know they're like, it's not so good. So, but I actually never seen it myself. I got to check it out eventually one of these days.
Doggone it! I should have made you watch that instead.
Yeah. Well, we got to have you on the show next time. Another time, we could do it then.
Fair enough.
All right, Damon. Anything else we want to talk about with Guardians of the Galaxy?
I don't think so. It was a great movie. And honestly, it's in my top 5 of MCUs, and oddly enough, Endgame is not.
Oh, really?
I judge it a little bit different. Like Endgame is a great movie. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's terrible. That'd be foolish. But it's not something I'm going to rewatch over and over and over again.
Okay,
I watched Infinity War over and over again. I watched Black Panther over and over again. I watched this over and over again. It's just not. I don't think I've watched it completely like in one sitting since I saw it the first time.
Well, that's fair. And also it's a big time investment, right? Because it's like 3+ hours, so that's understandable.
Right. Maybe that's part of it too.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually I actually have sat through it several times. So it's just that is definitely my favorite of the MCU. But yeah, this and just these two, like Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, like they're just and they're such perfect companion pieces. I think I mentioned this when we talked about the second one, is that this one is such a it's the same characters, but they're very different types of movies, right? Like this one feels a little bit more epic in scope in some ways, whereas the second one is much more personal, right? It's much more about the character and the characters and their relationships to each other, and it's just such a great balance of both in both these movies.
Daggone it! Now I'm gonna go watch Volume 2. See,
That's how it goes. All right, Damon. So where can people find you online?
I can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Damon Does. All one word, 2 D's in the middle, and the same at gmail.com for if you want to send me an email. And you'll find Damon Does the 6 Questions anywhere you can get your podcast app.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks again for coming on. It was nice to finally meet you face to face after about a year or so, and having you tweet out the little Derrick quotes from the show every now and then.
Thank you for having me. And real quick, I only knew conversed with Derrick for like 8 months, and in that time he felt like a mentor and a friend, and you don't find people very often that just treat you with just openness and you don't meet very good people very often, and he was one of those people for me. And for him, it was just Tuesday.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it was really cool to sit in the proverbial catbird seat. And thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. It was definitely great having you on. And you mentioned that we had Adam Lance Garcia on the episode before last, and off camera, we were talking about Derrick, and he had said a lot of the same things that you just said too. And that was just like this quality Derrick had, is that he was never like, no matter what level you were, like, as far as, he never felt like he was above anyone. Like, he was never condescending, no matter what your age, what your level of talent was, nothing. He was always, and that quality, like, he was like a mentor to everybody. He was just, but always in a way that never felt like he was talking down to you. He was that was an amazing quality that he had.
Yeah. So
yeah. And like you're saying, like the fact that you guys did this long interview and stuff, and even in that short amount of time, he did that with everybody. Like, that was just like that was just the way he was. Like, he's just like such a personable guy, and he made anyone who talked to Derrick, you felt like he was your best friend. Like, that was just the way he was with everybody.
Yeah. But
well, thanks so much. Yeah, and thanks again. And so yeah, please make sure to check out Damon's podcast and the other stuff he's doing. We're still working out who's going to be the next guest here, so we don't know exactly what we're going to be doing yet. Still working out the schedule with whoever, with few different people we're talking to. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with another new episode. We're going to go with the bi-weekly format just because it's a little bit harder to schedule guests and everything now with we don't have a set date as we did with Derrick anymore. But anyway, go check out superherocinephiles.com, check out our Facebook group, and please drop us on Super Cinema Pod on Twitter, on Instagram, and if you can donate to the show in any way, help support it, that would be great. And that does it for now. And of course, as always, want to remember our departed host emeritus, Derrick Ferguson. And the show's always going to be dedicated in his honor. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com, and remember to subscribe to watch more of our videos.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.